Alex here with part 6 of the Respondent. Going into this chapter, quite a bit shorter than the last two. There were more. For the amount of time that it took to get through it, there were definitely more useful points for me to bring up. I think because he finally starts to get into the very beginning parts of the litigation. Those parts, especially, I wanted to comment on. The I think he starts a chapter off with a line that is change is painful, but more so pain is changeful. That definitely was true for me because going through the pain of my high conflict child custody case is what made me who I am today. And that goes for the videos that I put up on the proper person and also the R Nevada judges stuff that I'm doing, and pretty much helps with everything else, with my job, with my current life. Everything's I learned a lot from all that pain. So, I definitely can relate to that remark. He talks about how, or he confronts the notion that women are the fairer sex, and he specifically says that it's a painfully misguided distortion of human nature. I kind of agree with this. He has indicated that women and men are equally capable of inflicting damage and pain. They just go about it in different ways, which I've heard from other sources. Typically, men can use physical violence, whereas women might use emotional or deception. Or there was one thing that he said is he mentioned that you could there is a way to kill a person without laying a single finger on them, and he talks about how there are suicide numbers to support this. He's talks about how if um, men, I guess, are more dangerous. Why do they kill themselves 8 times more often than women in these types of child custody situations? I'm not sure where the statistic came from, but he's not the only one who's said this. Um, so yeah, in a sense, at the moment, that's what's going on. But there are times, or there were times in history when the opposite was the case, and the courts favored men more, and that was actually discussed in one of Nevada's cases. The Mosley v. Figliuzzi case goes over some of that history. So, I don't know if he was just talking about it in the context of child custody disputes, but it seemed to me that he was, and that's kind of the part that I wanted to talk about. He talks about the family law system rewarding liars. Well, I don't know if I want to use the word reward. The thing is, I think it's not that the system rewards them. I think it's that the system does not understand how to sort them out. I think it's incompetence. And I think that the liars are getting the benefits of their deception from their own sort of, I guess, talent in tricking people. Not so much, because if you tell the system you're lying, you're obviously going to get in trouble. It's just that the system just can't tell. It just doesn't know how to do it. They make mistakes. They don't have time. That's what I think it is. And also, it's to the point where it's, I guess, embedded in the strategy of many lawyers. I guess what he's trying to say there is because lying is such an effective way to get what you want, it's actually being furthered and supported by the attorneys as part of a strategy to win, which I would agree with. So I don't know. You have my take on that. His ex said that he threatened violence and telegraphed an intent to kidnap the children over the last time that he went into the house when he broke the window and broke the. I guess he broke a small access window to get to the doorknob and open the door. Um, well, that's what I talked about in the last video. I know I said back then that yeah, you'll never hear the end of this. What I didn't think about elaborating on, which I can elaborate on now, is yeah, your ex isn't going to go, hey, Your Honor, he broke in the house to come and talk to me. They're going to say he broke in the house because he was going to kill me or he was going to beat me up. He said he was going to take the kid. That's what they're going to say. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. All they need is the fact that you broke the door to be true. If they can tell the court that you broke the window and you broke the door and you went in, that's all they really need you to admit to. Then they can just add all kinds of other stuff in there, because it's too easy for it. Just sets them up on it. Just here's a silver platter. Go ahead and lie. I've set it all up for you perfectly, and they can't help themselves. It's a wonderful story. if they just add a few things to the story. They can't just say you broke in just because you love them and you want to work things out. They're not going to do that. So when he says that she lied, that he was going to, be violent and kidnap the kids and all this stuff, yeah, I find that very believable. I do, because that's exactly what my ex would have done. I do find that very believable, and I don't know what to tell you. I mean, maybe he actually did, maybe he didn't. It's plausible, it's believable. That is a strategy that I would have seen coming from a mile away from an attorney. And so, yeah, mercy of lawyers. He talks about how regular people are at the mercy of lawyers because of an arcane legal system. In other words, the legal system is so difficult to understand that it has, by design, put people at the mercy of attorneys, including apparently rich people, including him. Yeah, it has. And that's a problem, especially when you're not rich. I mean, because for him, he can get an attorney. Other people can't. So there's just so many ways. I don't want to turn this video into a political video. That is a problem that has to be dealt with, and it needs its own discussion. He's right about that. He talks about how, okay, so after his wife accused him of violence and attempting to kidnap the kids when he broke into the back of the house, back door, he apparently got subjected to another 72-hour mental health hold. And he talks about how this time he was able to get out 2/3 of the way in. And apparently it was a different mental health facility. I don't know if that's the reason, or maybe he just figured out the process or figured out what to do. Whatever it was, he got out earlier. And he does explain that because of him busting in the door and being accused of terrible things, he had to go back to a facility, a mental health facility, not the same one, a different one. Let's see, an old friend this time. Okay, so he mentions that he didn't want to go back to any of the other friends that helped him the last time. He was back in the mental health facility again for a second time, and this time he asked a new friend for help, and this person pitied him and helped him. And I guess it was a friend that he'd had decades, back. It wasn't a friend that he hadn't been talking to for at least a decade, that apparently had gone through something like this before, and so they understood what he was going through. I don't know. I mean, I can speculate more if I really want to, but I'm not going to do that. He didn't really elaborate much further. He gets, at this point, an email from a lawyer, his very first email, indicating that there's an intent to dissolve the marriage. Apparently the facilitator that he went and talked to flipped, that's the word he uses, and went to work for his ex. And she went and filed what they call a domestic violence restraining order. In Nevada, we call it an order of protection against domestic violence. Anyway, she went and filed for a DVRO, and the first thing he thought was to talk to his friendly psychologist, or mental health expert. I'm not sure what she is. She could be a psychologist. She could be a therapist. I'm sorry, guys. There's a lot of detail. I really wish I could absorb all of it. I'm just going through this book to do this review for you guys, and sometimes I don't pick up on 100% of what's going on, which is why you can post comments to let me know if I got something wrong. So Dr. Wood recommended a lawyer to him. He mentions how he just went along with the recommendation, went to her office. He called her office a shrine to herself. I can tell that this is going into, he's going to say he had issues with his attorney. I can tell that this is leading there by not only how he describes the office, but also how he hired her on the spot, how the $30,000 retainer was shocking to him. He had to apparently borrow money from his friends because his wife drained all the bank accounts. So the money was definitely something that he underlined. He also talks about how he found out later. I guess she called him on the phone or something and talked about how his ex hired an attorney who was an arch nemesis of hers. He found out later that this attorney had a history with his ex's attorney, which is kind of comical. Of course they do. That's something that I would know because of what I do with the Our Nevada Judges channel. But I mean, it is shocking to a lot of people to find out that they think it's just them and their ex, and they're going to court and there's a judge. They think it's so simple. And no, there's these complex relationships between these attorneys, between the judges. There's history that goes way back, all the way to law school. There's a lot. I mean, in some ways, it's like Game of Thrones, and you're just a commoner. You're just like, it's not good. But when I see him talking about that, I like that, because I think it's important for people to know more about that part of the process of the family court system. So yeah, he apparently these two lawyers clashed in prior cases, one of them specifically involving Alec Baldwin, who contributed to the book in a small way. Anyway, there is some discussion on that. That is something that I think is going to be very helpful to people. I hope that there's a lot more of this going forward. I really do. Um, he also talks about the label petitioner and the label respondent, which goes into the title of the book, Respondent. I get that. And he says that the respondent has a never-ending disadvantage against the petitioner, and he goes into all of these reasons as to why. I don't believe this. I know that he says it was just his experience. He kind of leaves the door cracked for somebody to say, okay, well, he said it's just his, I don't think it matters at all. I just don't. The petitioner, respondent, plaintiff, defendant, superstition to me. I mean, I've recorded a lot of cases. I went through the system myself. I sure as heck didn't get any advantages from that label. I really didn't. So I think what mattered more was the gender bias, was the self-representation bias. And that was really the bias. I didn't get any vibe that I was steamrolling my ex because I was the petitioner. Quite the opposite. So that's all I really have for you guys. That's the end of this chapter. I think that next chapter, there's going to be probably much more on the dynamics of the litigation. And so that's actually makes me happy. I'm looking forward to that. I think that is where I'm going to be able to really give some really good insight on what he was going through, and then hopefully something that's really helpful to you guys. So yeah, let's wrap this video up. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.